Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to Wrestler Weekly Presents. I'm your host, Scottie Richardson. Welcome back. It is another week and now another episode of Wrestler Weekly Presents. I'm so happy that you joined me. This is going to be a special show. And I got such great feedback from episode 2 when I spotlighted the Van Halen album to start the show and kind of tied that in. Well, I've been asked to do it, so we're going to do it. I still go to flea markets and yard sales and garage sales and different things where people are buying, thrift shops, Goodwill, Salvation Army. I'll go all these places. Obviously, I'm looking for any kind of wrestling magazines or wrestling memorabilia. But I also collect other things, as you know. And so I just picked, and sometimes when I go, I always text Reggie, and he, vice versa, my brother Reggie, for those that don't know, he's in Jacksonville, Florida. And guess what? He is our guest on today's show. But I will text Reggie, and I will say, hey, I'm going to hit the flea market, so is there anything that you want, anything you're looking for? And then we'll try to help each other out, so to speak. So I picked this up for Reggie. He is a big Jeff Beck fan. And this is Jeff Beck and the Jan Hammer Sound Group. The Jan Hammer Group. And so this album is live 1977, which again is right in our wheelhouse. And this is from the Scorpio Sound Auditorium there in London, England. So I'm going to ship this one out to Reggie, but I thought I would show it to you, the fans, because we are going to have Reggie on the show today. This episode, we are going to spotlight tag teams in the Mid-Atlantic area. Now, as you know, the Crockett area was built and known for tag teams there in the 70s and mid-70s, late 70s. So I've got a stack of Mid-Atlantic mags and then some other mags. And we have a giveaway at the end of the show. So we're going to go through some of that stuff for you. And we got my Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood t-shirt on today that I picked up at the NWA Legends Fan Fest a few years ago. And I wrote an article on this tag team that we'll probably talk about, Reggie and I will talk about, but it's titled, Just Have Fun. That was a quote from Ricky Steamboat. So you can find that on 720wrestling.com, 720wrestling.com. You can also check out my other articles that I've written that are out there. And also, if you want to find Wrestler Weekly, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Just check at Wrestler Weekly to find us. You can also pick up t-shirts at prowrestlingtees.com/Wrestler Weekly and pick up the book. The book is selling well worldwide, by the way, on Amazon worldwide. That is the book that I wrote last year. It's now delivered to you in 2018, Family Bacon Wrestling. So check that out. Now, let's go ahead and call in our guest, and we will get right to it.
Hello?
Reggie.
Yes.
You are on Wrestler Weekly Presents. Welcome back. It is season 3. And I am showing our fans the album that I just picked up at the flea market for you that I'll be shipping out. The Jeff Beck live album from London, England, 1977.
Can't beat it. Fantastic.
In episode 2, I showed a vinyl of Van Halen in their first album. And so I've gotten such great feedback that we may just make this part of the show and show our fans the vinyl that I pick up on my flea market travels. But this episode is Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, which you and I obviously grew up in. I wrote a book about it, Family Bacon Wrestling. And Just before we jump into it, Reggie, give us your thoughts. Growing up in Mid-Atlantic, the fans have heard a lot of my background and stories, and you and I have had multiple episodes through Season 1 and Season 2. But when you talk tag teams in the Mid-Atlantic and growing up in that area, give the fans your thoughts.
Well, I think the best thing to do, I always like to set the stage with a little bit of pop culture to get everybody back in time, get in that time capsule, time machine, and travel back to what was going on. So you have tag teams were all over the place. We're talking in TV, movies, you name it, music. You've got Starsky and Hutch, my personal favorite tag team of all time, with Paul Michael Glacier, David Soul. Don't give up on us, baby. There's some probably 50-year-old women that got tingly just now. And then you had Stanford and Son, one of the greatest.
That's one of my all-time favorites, yeah.
Your favorite show.
Mm-hmm.
Chips, Ponch and John. How can you go wrong with that? The Duke Boys, Bo and Luke Duke.
Which my son loves,
right who could forget, the first lesbian detective show, Cagney and Lacey.
Yeah.
Then you had the Australian guys from Air Supply singing into each other's eyes as middle-aged men.
Yeah.
And who could forget Jake and the Fat Man?
Yeah.
But to set the stage for the Mid-Atlantic, for me, my first memories were of Paul Jones, Baron von Raschke, tag team champions, going against Jay Youngblood, Rick Steamboat. You had the Anderson brothers. You had Big John Studd and Ken Patera, probably my personal favorite tag team of all time that were Mid-Atlantic tag champs.
Yeah.
So these are the things that we grew up on. And being brothers, we could relate to the tag team. That's just something that's always fascinated me, is the tag team titles, where it took a team to accomplish the goal and the task at hand.
Yeah, it's funny because I was watching. I'm going to give a plug to Greg Price, and he can find him at NWA Legends. But the Mid-Atlantic Memories DVD that I'm showing the fans, it talks about that, how, when you've got and Ricky Morton said it best, when you have a 2-on-1 situation and, you can really get the crowd into it. It's that gang mentality where they're just, the comeback.
When they cut the ring in half, cut it across the two neutral corners, where you could cut that ring in half, and it's all about strategy, trying to pull your guy into the corner, the quick tag, the hot tag.
Yeah.
Just good stuff.
All right, so I am showing the fans this magazine, which I got from my contact in Japan. This came straight from Japan, and I actually ordered two, one for myself and one for Reggie. But this is the Japanese magazine, 1978, and on the cover is Ric Flair with one half of the NWA World Tag Team Championships, the belt on the shoulder. And Reggie, tell the fans who his partner was.
Well, his partner was the Hammer, Greg the Hammer Valentine, and what made this tag team so unique and rare is the fact that these two guys would go on to have extreme, extraordinary success as single wrestlers, but they were a fantastic tag team and won the titles from the Anderson brothers.
Right.
And the Andersons were heels, but Valentine and Flair were such good heels, they were bigger heels than the Andersons.
Yeah. I want to say there's a photo in this mag, and as you know, the Japanese magazines are the opposite. They're read the opposite of our American magazines. So here's a photo of, if you can see that, there's a small photo of Ric Flair with that one half of the world's tag team titles around his waist. David Chappell and I had a great conversation about this, and he has written extensively on the Mid-Atlantic Gateway about this tag team and how fascinated the tag team was for him. And I have to, and I'll speak for Reggie as well, that Greg Valentine, Ric Flair as a tag team, just off the charts. Unbelievable.
Well, they held the belts for most of that year. I believe it was '77, and should have won Tag Team of the Year. Before the PWI, but they do include that the Andersons won the Tag Team of the Year. But I think they missed it. I think it should have been Valentine and Flair that year.
All right. So do you want to? I've got a great Mid-Atlantic mag here. This one has Blackjack, Mulligan, and Ric Flair on the cover.
Yes.
But inside,
I was going to throw you a curveball and segue into Flair and Mulligan also being World Tag Champions, and they were baby faces.
Oh, absolutely.
And then they had a split, and that started the big feud between Flair and Mulligan that took place after that. But one of the other great iconic tag teams of all time.
Yeah. So this particular magazine has one page, and it's got the quote unquote cousins. So you've got Ole and Gene on the top, and this one is signed by Ole, and then Ric Flair underneath, and it says the family reunited is the caption. But what a great tag team the Andersons were.
Oh, they were. When you think of tag teams, for me, coming from the Mid-Atlantic area as we did, you immediately think of the Andersons and those boots, the striped boots that they had, and just iconic guys. Gene Anderson's chops. You think of rough, tough Minnesota wrecking crew.
Yeah, I had the privilege of meeting Ole on a few different occasions, but I'll never forget the very first time, and I said, Ole, I do have to tell you, as a fan growing up in this area, I believe the Andersons are the greatest tag team of all time. Now, I get hammered by the Road Warriors and the fans of the Steiners and fans of just many other different tag teams, and I love them all, don't get me wrong, but as a kid, this team, when you watch their matches, the way that you talked about earlier, how they cut the ring off, how they work on an arm, and they had TV matches where there would be no pinfalls. They would work on the arm so much that the guy gave up. And
that's the thing. We're so criminals of selective memory, where we have short-term memories where you'll have even people trying to debate you that LeBron James was better than Michael Jordan, and you just gasp for the people that saw Jordan play. There's no comparison. My thing is, when did he pass Kobe Bryant? But the same thing with the Andersons and the Road Warriors. Had it not been for the Andersons and the roughhousing style, you would have never had a Road Warriors. And Ole Anderson is one of the people that discovered the Road Warriors. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, Ole Anderson on the video, that the Mid-Atlantic Memories that I talked about earlier, he talks about just in tag team action where, people would come up to him and say, I couldn't wait to get to your match because you guys were real. And, and they made it, and Ole said, we were great workers, but sometimes it was real.
But the character they were playing was themselves.
Right.
And that's always going to do better. You look at Stone Cold, that's really just an exaggeration of his own personality.
All right, so let's jump to a great feud that really, if you read there were minimal articles back in the Mid-Atlantic mags. A lot of them were photo driven, thanks to Les Thatcher and the work that he did. And but some of the editorial that Woody Smith did was fantastic. And there was over a 3 magazine period of time, they discussed the feud of Ricky Steamboat and Paul Jones versus Greg Valentine and Baron von Raschke. And it's just phenomenal. So I'm going to show the fans the great photo that this was Reggie's first Mid-Atlantic magazine as a kid. And, he's told on many different episodes here on Wrestler Weekly Presents about how our mother tried to make us these Carolina Tar Heel blue baby blue belts out of whatever material she could find. But if you open up that particular magazine, in the front page, it talks about World Tag Team Champions, and it names Greg Valentine and Baron von Raschke, and they won the titles from Paul Jones and Ricky Steamboat. But there is a great article in this where the title is World Tag Title Takes Rough Turn. And this was June 7th of 1978. And in one night, Baron von Raschke lost the TV title to Paul Jones. And in the same night, Paul Jones and Ricky Steamboat lose the tag titles to Baron von Raschke and Greg Valentine, which I'm showing both photos. But talk about these two tag teams.
Well, you got two fantastic tag teams, and each tag team there, Jones and Steamboat, von Raschke and Valentine, the B Foundation, as you would say now.
Yeah.
These guys were tag team technicians, meaning that they won titles with other tag teams, with other guys.
Yeah.
And you look at von Raschke and Valentine together, what a fantastic visual image for one thing. And then not only that, what a great team. Just epitomized the heel during this era. And then obviously Jones and Steamboat. Jones was the big baby face at the time, and their breakup happened during a battle royal, which it was Jones and Steamboat, the last two guys, and Jones turned on Steamboat for the win and the money.
Yep.
And that started that feud. But just really classic time, classic era of these two powerhouse teams during that era. The Mid-Atlantic, a lot of people don't know, originally was a tag team territory.
Right.
That's what they were known for.
Right. Absolutely. And so, a lot of times fans want to talk about when we meet our heroes, and we do that. Can you talk about the story? We had a lot of stuff signed by Greg Valentine and even Paul Jones and Ricky Steamboat, but give the story, if you can, about meeting Baron von Raschke.
Yeah, I actually met his son, and through his son, I was able to explain what a big fan I was and able to get in touch with the Baron. And he was a really nice guy, was able to send a lot of condolences and appreciation for my dad, who's a 100% disabled veteran, and very nice guy. Couldn't have been a more class act, but one of the great characters. I just remember as a kid, my dad always doing the claw. He would give me the claw, and for these people that don't think the claw is a good move, I implore you, find someone 6'4" or taller, like a David Von Erich was 6'8", Mulligan 6'9", a Baron Von Raschke 6'4". All these guys that did the claw, Don Jardine, the spoiler.
Yeah. If
you find a guy that can reach both temples and squeeze your head with the thumb and the pinky, you will tap. I promise you will tap out. Yeah, but the claw was such a great move, and not only that was the German persona where he was the Baron, the shaved head, to me the classic heel from this era, and went on to have a great tag team with Paul Jones, which was one of my first memories. Yeah. And we used to love the Super Friends, so they had the Joker and the Penguin, and to me they were the real life version of the Joker and the Penguin, Baron and Paul Jones, the two evil guys trying to beat up on Jay Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat, who was another great tag team.
Yeah, and you can tell the fans firsthand how you experienced the claw by me.
Yeah, the claw and the suplex, getting suplexed onto the couch and knocking off a pitcher and bowl set that I got my butt whipped for, even though, how do you control where your heel goes when someone's slamming you to the ground?
Absolutely. let's segue to a tag team that not a lot of people ever really talk about. And that is Dino Bravo and Mr. Wrestling #1, Tim Woods.
Yeah, another tag team where you had two iconic singles wrestlers coming together. That's the thing. There's a lot of different dynamics to tag teams. You can either take two great singles wrestlers, or you can take a great team like the Andersons that maybe weren't great, as solo acts, even though Ole was great in his own right. But you put them together, and they just are an explosive team where you take Tim Woods, Mr. Wrestling, and Dino Bravo, they would probably be successful in any scenario.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I've got the one mag that was my first magazine as a kid in the Mid-Atlantic area. Let's see if I can find it here. But on the cover, which has got just a fantastic of, here it is. Talking about Dino Bravo. And here he is on the cover with the Canadian heavyweight title. So you talk about great singles wrestler. And obviously Tim Woods, former United States heavyweight champion. You put those two guys together and bam, there you go, world tag team champs. And so now we talked about Baron von Raschke and Paul Jones. And that was really, as we were coming up and starting to watch Saturday morning, family bacon wrestling style, that was the feud. Baron von Raschke and Paul Jones against Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood. I mean, that was, I posted a few weeks ago about that tag team of Baron von Raschke and Paul Jones, and just how they were terrifying as a young kid, the German, and how nasty Paul Jones was. I mean, that was a team that scared us. And so we believe we wanted to be Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood just to beat them.
Oh, yeah. And what a great tag team. I mean, Steamboat and Youngblood, you could make a case that they were the greatest of all time. I mean, I think they were three or four-time NWA World Tag Champs. Just phenomenal team. They worked together. That was a case where you put two guys together. Sometimes you just have two good names, and it's a rare thing. Maybe in the case of Bravo and Mr. Woods, Mr. Wrestling, Tim Woods. But when you get Steamboat and Youngblood together, that is a team. That's an iconic team that worked in tandem.
Yeah, and I was telling the fans earlier. Go ahead.
And I was going to say there was a point when Youngblood broke his leg, I want to say 81, somewhere abouts, and Ric Flair actually was tagging with Ricky Steamboat. It was on TV a couple of times where, Steamboat, the finishing move, he would pick Youngblood up and drop him on the opponent. Well, there was one where he went to pick a Flair up and he dropped him, and a little bit, had a little extra mustard on it, because Flair was obviously a little bit bigger, thicker than Youngblood, and even in the interview with Connell, he said, I had to get a little bit more to get Flair up in the air. But definitely one of those great times where you see two guys that were former feuding together, now teaming together with Flair and Steamboat.
Yeah, Steamboat and Youngblood. Bruce Mitchell, PW Torch, he has said many times that this is the greatest tag team of all time. And it's hard to argue. I mean, when you're talking about, and I wrote in the article that's on 720wrestling.com about this tag team in their feuds with Don Kernodle and Sergeant Slaughter, as well as the Briscoes, which those two teams were fantastic as well. But, I mean, just how fluid they were, how just they worked together so well, and the speed. And I did reach out a few years ago. I reached out to Ricky Morton, and I said, how much did you and Robert study Rick Steamboat and Jay Youngblood? And obviously Ricky Morton said we didn't, but you could see some of the influence for sure. So we've talked about tag teams. I've got two things to do, and then we're going to be completed with this episode. But the first thing I want to do is, fans, last week I had a little giveaway for those that the first person that sent me a message on all of our social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube comments. Make sure you are giving us a thumbs up and commenting on our YouTube videos. That certainly helps our analytics for sure. But this is in one of my thrift store travels in, I want to say, Irwin, North Carolina. I picked up this, was sitting there. It is a great tag team that we have not talked about, but this tag team came a little bit later, and that was the Koloffs, Nikita Koloff and Ivan Koloff. And this is signed to DJ, Best Wishes Champ, God bless, Ivan Koloff, John 3:16. So fans, if there's a DJ out there or a David Johnson, or you just want an autograph for free of Ivan Koloff, who has passed, if you will send me a message on any of our social media avenues, I will mail this to you for free. So whoever wants Ivan Koloff's autograph, I found this in a thrift shop. It can be yours. Just send us a message. But what a great tag team the Koloffs were.
Yeah, they were, and mixed in with Crusher Khrushchev, part of that trifecta, tri-headed monster. Ivan Koloff was one of the greatest tag team specialists, and he was a former world champion of the WWF. People don't realize what an icon he was, and greatly missed. But him and Ole Anderson held the national tag titles. Him and Mr. Sato held the Florida tag team titles. He was just one of the iconic guys when you think of villain tag team specialists. Him and Boris, I can't figure his last name, the other Russian guy was also national tag champion.
Yeah, Alexis Smirnoff. Yeah, Alexis Smirnoff. Yeah. Great tag team.
Another great tag team.
Yeah. When we talk about tag teams, the very first Mid-Atlantic event that Reggie and I went to, and Maddie from Wrestling with Classics, check out his stuff as well, but Maddie and I have great conversations about this because we're all three of us with Reggie and Mike Leotis, we're all great fans of Ken Patera. And so the very first wrestling event that Reggie and I ever attended, high school football field, outdoors, and Ken Patera and Big John Studd were tagging, and we were sitting there on the front row. So Reggie, I know that's one of your favorite tag teams.
Yeah, I'd have to say that's probably my favorite tag team. They held the Mid-Atlantic tag team titles, not to be confused with the Baby Blues that you showed earlier that were the World Tag NWA tag team titles. But just an awesome team. This is the first real power team you ever saw with the big 6'10", 6'11" John Studd and the former Olympic weightlifter Ken Patera with the bleach blonde hair, but they just fit the part of the villain. You know, I'm a big comic book guy, as you are, and you see that villain, those characters that can personify that heel role as well as they did. To me, when I think of my favorite, I'm not saying they're the greatest tag team. I'm saying they're my favorite tag team. That's a different thing. Yeah. But definitely one of the best, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
They went all to WWF and were managed by Bobby Heenan and had great feuds with Andre the Giant and a lot of fantastic matches, memorable matches and angles where they had the hair versus hair match with Andre and just different things there that are some of the most iconic images when you think of when the wrestling started to have the big boom.
Sure. All right, so we are going to end. There was some sad news a few weeks ago in a passing of a great tag team. Reggie alluded to his name earlier, but I wanted to show this photo. This is from Wrestling Album number 5, which you know is one of those that we love, the mail-in order that you had to mail in for. But this was, we lost a great legend in Mr. Saito, and this is a photo of Mr. Saito and Mr. Fuji. back in the wrestling album number 5, but just a great guy, a great wrestler, and a great tag team specialist, and not necessarily Mid-Atlantic themed, but I wanted to at least give our condolences from Wrestler Weekly and Reggie and Mike, and send out to the family that our prayers and thoughts are with them. Reggie, tell the fans, you've been training for a kickboxing tournament. Tell the fans about your training and your art form and all of that.
Yeah, it's something I've been training in for a number of years now. Just something I like to do. I like the physical fitness of it. A lot of good cardio, definitely keeps you in shape. But I do amateur kickboxing in the IKF, International Kickboxing Federation. They also do Muay Thai. I practice that, but I'm more of an American kickboxer. I like the kicks above the waist. In my opinion, it's better to look at, more pleasing to the eye than the leg kicks. My problem with the leg kicks, if you keep kicking the opponent's leg, then he can't kick, and then that takes away the kicking, and we want the kicking. But
right.
Something that I like to do, been gearing up. I'm definitely older now, something I did before, and I'm trying to get back into it. Been going at it pretty hard and heavy. So looking forward to competing again and seeing what happens.
Awesome. Well, I know our fans will be behind you. And don't forget, fans, you can check out Mike Leotis on Wrestler Weekly Live. That's every Tuesday night on Twitter at Wrestler Weekly, 7:30 p.m. Eastern for Wrestler Weekly Live. You can check us out on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. That is on YouTube for Wrestler Weekly Presents. And then find us across all our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Pick up your t-shirts at prowrestlingtees.com/wrestlerweekly. And don't forget, read about the stories that Reggie and I grew up in, from going from Mid-Atlantic to Florida Championship Wrestling from Florida. We went from Bob Caudle to Gordon Soley and then back. And so read about that Family Bacon Wrestling on Amazon. Reggie, got any more parting words?
Yeah, I would just throw an honorable mention in there for the tag teams if people want to do the research on their own. Jimmy Snuka, Ray Stevens, one of the greatest tag teams ever, and Jimmy Snuka, Paul Orndorff, and don't forget Paul Jones, Mass Superstar, 1981, probably one of my favorite tag teams ever. Absolutely.
And this is the Paul Orndorff photo with the World Tag Belt. And this is the photo that got kicked off of Twitter for being too provocative. Paul Orndorff in the woods, Christmas tree behind him with one half of the World Tag title. So, fans, as we always say, thanks for joining us this week. Until next time, so long for now.
A lot of people say, well, you're working on a doctorate, you work long hours, you're helping your dad, you got a lot going on, so why do you want to get back in the ring at your age? And I simply scratch my head and I say, I don't know. You tell me. You don't get these just by showing up or sitting on the couch. You get these by earning them. You get these by pushing yourself, seeing what you can do. It's not about the trophy. That's probably one of the 3 or 4 times I've ever pulled that out. You get to the top of whatever it is you're doing by enjoying the grind, enjoying the pain, enjoying the sacrifice. That's how you become a champion, because you are harder on you than anybody else can be, and you re-freaking fuse mediocrity and being average. Let somebody else be a statistic. Be a champion instead.